Let's circle back. I won't keep you too much longer. I know we're both really busy, but let's circle back. I like how you have a very holistic lens. So we've talked a lot about this formulation and the product that you can take daily, right? But as you mentioned, like epigenetics in one of the 10 facets of aging, right? That's a lot of the influence of what we do. That's nurture aspect, right? How we live our life, lifestyle, what kinds of foods we eat, exercise, everything that we can think of that we encounter throughout the day, right? So briefly just touch on, we talked a lot about the formulation, the supplementation and things like that, but you've mentioned yourself, your biological age was lower because of the lifestyle that you lived, and you've blogged about that and everything. So explain to the listener, because a lot of the audience listening out there, I constantly preach that it's not just like a quick fix pill or supplement that you can take. There's all of these other facets that when we start to put them together with things like this, that's how we really get some of the long-term benefits. So briefly talk about some of the things you do personally in your lifestyle, or what types of things you try to, I guess, give resources or information to the general public that are pairing it with your formula that they're taking.
Sure. So yes, you're 100% correct that ideally it's a holistic approach, and you're considering all of the different aspects of your lifestyle and how they contribute to your overall health. Now, if you do only one of them, is it better than doing none? Of course. So someone who's looking for the magic pill, there's no magic pill that will solve everything, but it will benefit you more so than not taking it at all. Just like eating a healthy diet will benefit you more so than not. But with that said, the best things to do. So when it comes to diet, we have at novoslabs.com/diet, the Novos Longevity Diet. It's largely based off of the foundation of Mediterranean style diets, which have been found to be the best for long-term health. But there are some tweaks to it, in particular, for example, reducing the starch intake and the grain intake and increasing the vegetables and mushroom intake as a replacement for it, and a handful of other recommendations in there as well. Second, when it comes to diet, is not only the foods you eat, but the timing of those meals. And in other words, the time that you don't eat. So fasting. There is time restricted eating. So time restricted eating would be only eating within a certain small window of hours each day. So maybe that is between 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. So that would be a 6-hour eating window, and that means an 18-hour fast. That would be a great way to go about your day. There's a lot of research, especially Dr. Sachin Panda at the Salk Institute, who looks into the circadian rhythm and its impact on your metabolism and ultimately your health outcomes that can result from that. The quick thing to mention about that is that you could have two people, even twins, eating the same foods, same number of calories and so on, but they eat at different hours during the day. And the one who has the smaller eating window that tends to be shifted towards earlier hours in the day will have better health outcomes, better metabolic effects, less weight gain, so on and so forth, than the person who is eating for a wider window, especially later at night. Related to that would be fasting. So every so often trying to go at least 24 hours, and as much as crazy as it sounds, 3 days without eating any food. Once every quarter, I've slacked a little bit recently, maybe once every 6 months at this point, but I try to do once every quarter where I go 3 days without food. And then once a week, I try to go without food for 24 hours. So that might be like 6 or 7 p.m. dinner, and then waiting until dinner the next day before I eat again. That's extreme for a lot of people, and but it's actually much more manageable and easier to do when you work your way up to it. So for example, if you're only eating within that 6-hour window, it's easy to then collapse that 6 hours to 4 hours, and then the next week collapse it to 3 hours, and then eventually get to 24 hours. Your body adapts. And there's a psychological element, yes, but overall there's also a biological element that metabolically makes you more capable of going longer without the food. Exercise, at a minimum, walk 21 minutes per day. That is like a magic number in terms of almost like Pareto's law of 80-20 principles. So minimal effort to get a significant number of benefits. It's not literally 80% of the benefits. It's probably about 50% of the benefits, but you'll get significant benefits if you're walking 21 minutes a day briskly. But ideally, you're walking a lot more than that, and you're also getting some weightlifting, high intensity interval training. And you don't have to do steady state cardio, but if you're not doing something like high intensity interval training, then you probably want to do some steady state cardio, like a higher intensity zone of cardiovascular activity, like zone 4 or zone 5 exercise. And what else? Supplementation, we already went over. I'd say sleep is incredibly important. Don't neglect sleep. If you do, you run the risk of cardiovascular and neurodegenerative issues, not immediately, but if you look fast forward 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. All of these topics I actually covered on a webinar. So I did a webinar about a month and a half ago for longevity lifestyle. So if you go to YouTube and you search NOVOS longevity lifestyle, you'll see it. And I go into a lot of the research and the charts and the graphs and a lot of different topics, even talking about things like exposure to green, so being out in nature and the effects that that can have on your longevity. The fact that air pollution is actually worse for your longevity than even cigarette smoke is. So a lot of interesting facts, and then tips and pointers for each aspect of your lifestyle. I go through a full slide on practical tips for each one of these topic areas.
That's awesome. I will put the link in the show notes as well, so people can check
Great.
that out. And
thank you.
The last question is, there's so many great things that you shared. And for everyone out there, I mean, the key takeaways, this is something that I'm always fascinated by, is that how multifactorial your lifestyle is to actually contribute to living a longer life. And you can see your background behind you, right? The slogan or the motto is younger for longer, right? That's really what you're trying to do when you impart a lot of these healthier lifestyle habits, right? So let's talk. The last thing I want to ask is, like, where's the future direction of NOVOS? And if there were one key takeaway for the listeners to get from this podcast or any of the other content out there, what is your big take-home message for everyone out there when it comes to longevity or living a healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, well, I think the number one take-home message is what most people don't realize is it is possible to slow down and even reverse aging. We've shown it scientifically in the laboratory, and we're showing it now in the real world as well. So, aging is not inevitable. It is not something that cannot be scientifically impacted and slowed down to your benefit. And now is the time. We have learned so much in the science of aging and longevity, gerosciences, in the past decade, more so in the past decade than we knew probably combined throughout history prior to that. And this pace is accelerating. It's attracting the greatest thinkers in the world of biology to this field because of how much promise it shows. So now is the time to start to get involved with it. And in terms of what's next for NOVOS, I can't say too much, but we see ourselves as being the household name, the leader for consumer longevity. So taking the latest innovations from the laboratory and through our network of connections with the scientists to, first of all, of course, carefully evaluate everything and have safety first do no harm, but then bringing these innovations to you in the form of knowledge or formulations or testing.
Awesome. That was a lot of great information. Thanks for staying on a little longer, but there were so many things that we could have dove into too that we didn't get to touch on, but check out the website, all the content that I put in the show notes. But other than that, thanks so much for joining me, Chris. I learned a ton. I'm sure the listeners learned a ton too, and we'll be on the lookout for everything else in the future.
Sounds good. Thank you, Andrew.